Hi, okay. So I'm going to tell you through the course of my life, but this was one that was really painful. I think because of the like harsh words and also because of all the effort that I put in. But once again, whose fault is that? Mine. So, some of this may be redundant because I know that you guys have heard me talk about this before, but I didn't. I went to my high school reunion. I didn't want to. This was the 10-year reunion. One of my friends really wanted to go, and she was like, "We got to go to this. We got to see what's going on." And I'm like, "Oh man, I don't want to go to this." So of course because I'm a people pleaser, I said yes, and I went with her. And I was like drunk when I got there. She's like, "We have to have a couple of beers before we get there." Great. Okay, so I went there a little bit buzzed. So there was this guy Scott who I was talking to, who I went to high school with him. I knew him, and we were talking about music. And I had just started taking voice lessons at the time, and we were taught like prior to that, like I played the piano, I did the guitar. I mean, and this was like something different for me. Um, and I also felt it to be quite a challenge because I'd always been told that I couldn't sing, and um, you kind of get like like it kind of, I don't know, I kind of felt like nobody appreciates altos the way they should. Anyhow, so like in elementary school I was sort of turned off, like I felt like I couldn't do it. I felt like I just didn't have, I don't know, I was just discouraged. So anyhow, so this was like a big turning point in my life when I started taking lessons by a professional. um, and I was talking to Scott, who happened to tell me that Matt, who was not at the reunion, didn't go to the reunion. He wanted to go, but he didn't. Um, that he was like touring with his band. Okay, so once again, when you tell me touring with your band, I'm thinking like, I mean, I didn't think that it was like, like he was playing like Madison Square Garden, but oh shit, it's live. I meant to do this on private. All right, well, we'll just leave it live. Just nobody send any PayPals. No PayPals. I'll just do it live. It's fine. So I thought like, well, he's successful, and maybe I could get in, maybe I could be part of his band or whatever. And like this was what I was thinking. Of course I was a little drunk at the time. Anyhow, so I gave my number to Scott. Scott gave him my number, and he called. And I mean, at that night I thought, oh, this is great. I never thought it was going to happen, but anyhow, so I went to meet him one night, and he lived in New York City. It wasn't far into New York City. It wasn't hard for me to get there. It was like right, like exit 178 off the Hudson. I think that's what it was. No, West Side Highway. That's what it was. It really wasn't hard for me to get there. Besides the point. Besides the point. I went to meet him. We hung out. I didn't think anything of it. And then immediately he started calling me 5 times a day. We started talking all the time. I was going into the city to meet him. And I thought that things were going. I'm like, oh, well, maybe he's into me. I kind of like him. Okay. So this is what's happening. And all of a sudden, right, this is what happens. He's interviewing a keyboard player, and in comes Sarah. Sarah. Now, she was from Wisconsin, and she moved here to be with some boyfriend. So right away, it's like, that if she's moving here to be with somebody who obviously she must have met online, because how else did she meet someone from New York? Right away, like, she's moved here to live with him. So somebody's taking care of her. She's not like a working person who's like, it's really expensive to live in New York City. Really expensive. So Sarah shows up, and she's going to become the keyboard player. And she was living with this boyfriend, and I didn't think that she was a threat. And then all of a sudden, one night he tells me that they're going down to do some radio show interview, to be on like some college channel or whatever in Trenton. And it just didn't sit right with me. It just didn't sit right with me. And I said to my friend, I said, this just doesn't sit right with me. And she was like, don't worry about it. It's no big deal. She's like, I promise you, it's no big deal. I'm like, no, I'm telling you, something's going on with the two of them. Now, was there really something going on, or was it my fear that put that out into the universe? I don't know. I don't know, because I was really fearful of this. I really felt like, well, maybe he likes her. And then I was like, no, well, she's got a boyfriend and she moved. See, here's my naive mind thinking, well, she moved all the way from Wisconsin to be with this guy from New York. She must really be in love with him. Not realizing that people do things like that. They meet someone online, they pick up, they move, they're with this guy, they don't like him anymore, they go somewhere else. I don't do that. But that doesn't mean the rest of the world isn't doing that. So now, throughout this time, Matt doesn't ask me to be part of the of the band, but now Sarah's in there. So me and my friend are going to watch him in the band play in New York City, in these little clubs, which I'm fine with. Look, we all got to start somewhere, but there would be nobody in the audience really but me and my friends. And it was like Sarah didn't even take him seriously. Like, she didn't know the lyrics to the words, to the songs. She was laughing through it. It was like, like my friend was like, this is embarrassing. She was like, we better get out of here. She's like, this is fucking embarrassing. Meanwhile, I felt like this is who he chose to be in the band. I take him seriously. I'm supportive of him. And this is who he chooses. So this was these were my thoughts. This is how I was feeling. This is what was going out into the universe. So as time went on, like, him and I weren't talking for that long. I want to say, like, I went to meet him for the first time in May. So this was like that summer, like July, August, that kind of stuff. Um, and it's like July, it was like July, August, September. And then when we got to the holidays, now this is where things got really good. Before the holidays, he tells me, he refers to her as his girlfriend, and I didn't know that she moved in with him. Here I am, once again, naive and stupid, thinking, she moved all the way from Wisconsin to be with this guy. She's going to be with that guy. No, well, she moved out of that guy who was supposedly abusive. Yeah, so abusive, right? Supporting her. She wasn't working. Came here from halfway across the United States. Anyhow, so she moves in with Matt. So now I'm like, I don't even fucking believe this. I'm like, this girl can move from Wisconsin to New York, have somebody pay for her to live in New York City, doesn't have a job, is not looking for one, and this asshole is working two jobs, driving in and out of New York City to pick up his dumb ass, because you know why? He didn't want to lose his parking space. If I move my car, I'm going to lose my parking space. So this asshole would go down to New York City and pick him up. So Sarah moves in with him. So he tells me that he's going to Wisconsin with her for Christmas. So I'm like, like the steam is like coming out of my ears, and I was like fucking livid. And I said to him, like, it just came out of my mouth. I'm like, well, I want you to stay here and I want you to come to Christmas with me. Now, he was Jewish. So for Hanukkah, I went with him to his mom's house. She was in Wisconsin. And at that time, like, his mom was paying for him to go to Wisconsin. Like, I heard the whole conversation when we were having dinner. And I would, like, steam. I don't know if everyone else could see it, but it's like my face was hot. So he tells me, right, like a couple of days later, he says, I'm not going to go to Wisconsin. He's like, because, this is what he says, because Sarah's mom is, she is an alcoholic, anorexic who's schizophrenic, and she doesn't want me to be exposed to that. And her family is really abusive and fucked up. Abusive again. We get this word abusive again. And she doesn't want me to see that. Now, you're lying to the wrong bitch, because I know that's not true. Here is the truth. She comes from a good family. I'm sure they have their problems, but I don't think that she wanted him to see that she came from a good family. I think that would blow her whole facade of being the victim and being wounded and being abused and I need you and I need help and being vulnerable. It just wouldn't fit her narrative. So that's why he wasn't going. You could blow smoke up someone else's ass, but you're not going to blow it up mine. So he comes with me. to my brother's house. Physically, nothing ever happened between Matt and I, ever. Not before Sarah, not after, never. Yeah, me either. So we're at my brother's house for Christmas Eve, and I'm not kidding you. She must have called him 200 times that night. He was on the phone with her constantly until finally I was like, okay, why don't I just take you home? So I took him home, and he didn't think I was mad. You know, I could hear when he was on the phone with her that they were having a party. And I could hear, I mean, listen, they were having a Christmas party because it was Christmas. There was no dysfunction over there. Ugh. So anyhow, so she comes back from Wisconsin, and I think at this point she breaks up with him. She breaks up with him, and he's devastated. When I tell you devastated, this guy would call me crying, and I would be like, I remember one time I'm with my friend in Rite Aid, and she is like, who the fuck is on the phone? I'm like, it's Matt. And she's like, is he crying? And I'm like, yes. And she's like, oh my fucking God. So so like I am very compassionate. I don't want to see somebody hurt. So I would talk to him, and I'm like, Matt, you deserve better than this. This isn't the way you should be treated. This, that, and the next thing. He had to like ask her to leave his house, and she still wanted to live there. I mean, it was all kinds of craziness that went on. And I'm like, this whole time I'm being supportive of him, and he just has no use for me. The only use he had for me is when he wanted to cry to me. Now, my birthday is March. So this is going on from like Christmas time to March. We're going to go out to dinner for my birthday. My father came up from Florida. I have to go pick his ass up because he doesn't want to lose his parking space. So I'll drive down to New York City, and then I'll drive back up here. And then later on tonight, I'll drive you back home and drive back up here because I don't have anything else to do. But I was so desperate that I would have done anything to make him happy. And he did nothing but kick me in the ass. So this situation gets so much worse. So of course we are late to my birthday dinner with my family there waiting because he was at some sort of a codependence anonymous meeting, which I'm not making fun of. I think those meetings are very important. I think that you should be part of that, but you knew you had to be somewhere. Why did you go? Why didn't you leave on time? Like, I just don't understand. Like, well, it's okay to keep me waiting, but this asshole, like, there was another time that now she's starting to get back into the picture because she doesn't want, look, she didn't want to be with him. She didn't want me with him either. She just wanted to control the situation, and she was controlling the situation. So one Saturday I had the day off, and I was going down to spend it with him in the city, and he and I are driving somewhere, and he's like, we just have to pick up Sarah. Well, I'm on the phone with my friend, and my friend is like, what? She's like, oh my fucking God. She's like, did he just say Sarah? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, don't you let her intimidate you. Fuck that. Don't let her intimidate you. So I spent the whole day with the two of them. Okay. Terrible. Terrible. So, so now from like March, April, May, June, all this time, it's back and forth. Like he's trying to cultivate this business, and he was really talented. Like he came up with this way of like pressing Polaroid pictures or whatever he was doing. And the pictures came out really nice. Like my family bought a lot of them, but he used to hire models. I've told you this before. He would hire models. And in my mind, when you talk about a model, like I'm thinking like Naomi Campbell, Iman, I'm thinking Cindy Crawford, like that, and Christy Turlington, like these to me are models. So I'm expecting to see those types of women. And I wouldn't have been jealous of them. I mean, like, if you're a model, you're a model. But the models that he was hiring were average, everyday people. They were just like me and everybody else. So I thought, oh, I want to be a model. Well, that was the end of it. I'll get to that story later. So I was always like trying to work with him. Like I would take the day off of work. Fucking idiot. Take the day off work with him at like one of those like street sales. He would make like thousands of dollars during the day, and I would make nothing. And he would spend the whole day ordering me around, bossing me around, and like everything I did was wrong. If I stood there, I was in the wrong spot. If I stood there, I was in the wrong spot. I was always wrong. Anyhow, so this went on. Finally, a fucking idiot. For his birthday, which was in August, I bought him a star. You know, one of those stars, you know, like you can name it after someone, asshole. I made him like a memory book, and I bought concert tickets. Listen to what I did. I bought concert tickets to Grateful Dead and to Crosby, Stills and Nash in New Jersey, the Jersey Shore, or near the shore. So I said, okay, we'll go to, I paid for this. I paid for it all. I paid for the hotel. I paid for dinner. I think we stayed in Point Pleasant. We stayed in Point Pleasant. That's where we stayed. We went to the beach. We went to dinner, and then we went to see Crosby, Stills, and Nash. When we came back, first of all, he wouldn't sleep underneath the covers. I don't know if he thought I was going to molest him. I don't know what he thought I was going to do, but he would not go under the covers. He stayed on top of the covers. I woke up first because I just felt so uncomfortable by this whole situation. It was just so awkward. His phone, I'm not even kidding, when I turned it over in the morning, it had 72 missed calls from Sarah. 72 missed calls. So I'm like, I don't even believe this. When he got up, you know what he told me? Now, Grateful Dead is my favorite band. I mean, I got a tattooed here on my leg. But my favorite band. I could have cared less about Crosby, Stills, and Nash if I missed it. But Grateful Dead was that night. And he asked me when we got up in the morning, he's like, can you take me home because I have to get back to work. At this point, he was working a real job. Not really a real job. He worked for a friend. But he's like, because I want to be able to take Thursday off so that I can go whitewater rafting with Sarah. He goes, if you drop me off home, you can make it back down here to go see the Grateful Dead by yourself. I'm not even kidding you, so mad. Late 20s, late 20s. I was so mad. I said, you know what? I'm just going to take you home. That's it. I'm just going to take you home. So I drove him home. I ate the money for the tickets. I didn't go back there. I was not going to drive 2 hours into New York City and then drive back down by myself and drive back again. I mean, that's ridiculous. So I ate the money. So that was now August, right? So come October was like the last time I finally spoke to him because now I had an off again, on again boyfriend, Tom, right? At this point, I was still on again, off again with Tom. We were pretty much off, but we were still kind of talking. And I don't know, Tom did something that upset me, and I called him and he wouldn't answer the phone. I kept going to voicemail, and he just, now meanwhile, I'm taking the phone call with him crying in Rite Aid. I'm hanging out with Sarah on a Saturday afternoon. I'm putting up with all his bullshit, but I call him and he doesn't answer. So the next day, he gives me this shit about how he met these two girls and they went roller skating, and it was the first time that he had a good time in months. In months. I took you on vacation for your birthday. I took you to a concert. All right. But this is the first time he had a good time in months. And that I should be happy for him. And that I was being very insensitive and I was very selfish. So that was that. Okay. After I ate that and apologized, even though I wasn't wrong, a couple of weeks later, the subject came up again about modeling. You know, he needed a model. And I was like, I said something to him like, people used to always make comments. There was a girl in one of his photos that had her hair pulled back, like in a bun up here, and she had these huge glasses on, sunglasses on. And I guess she sort of looked like me. So people always thought that that was me. And they would ask, oh, is that you in the picture? And I would be like, nope, none of these are of me. And so finally I said to him, I'm like, you know, you have a lot of brunettes, you have a lot of blondes, but you don't have any redheads. Well, that was all I needed to say, because then it was, you know, you think that I want to be with you and you think that we're meant to be, and your friends are pumping bullshit into your head, and I am the artist and I decide who the model is. And this went on and on. I mean, I don't think that anybody was ever that mean to me. I mean, even like when people don't like you, they don't usually attack you physically like that. I mean, I literally cried for days. Like I can cry right now thinking about it. And I went over to my friend's house. Like that must have been on a Saturday, because I remember being so upset. I got somebody to cover for me on Sunday, and I don't ever do that, especially Sunday because it was time and a half. I don't ever do that. But I had somebody cover for me, and I remember going over to my friend's house and it just I couldn't stop crying. Like it was terrible. I never spoke to him again after that. Um, I did, but this is what happened. So that was like sometime October, late October maybe. Um, and then I started seeing somebody else like February of the following year. So after I felt like I had moved on, I reached out to him just to see how he was. And he told me that he got married, didn't marry Sarah. And he said that he was working at a fair that was not far from me on Sunday. And he's like, why don't you come down and meet my wife? I was totally over it at this point. So it didn't bother me at all. So I went, and she was like a Sarah kind of type. He said that she was from South Africa, I believe. So I don't even know if it was a situation where she was going to be able to stay here, or I don't know. I don't know all the details. I don't care. But like she barely even looked up and said hello to me. And that was the last time I spoke to him. I left the fair, I went to work, and that was it. Um, and I felt like that marriage was just as much of a farce as the whole Sarah thing was. But anyway, so my point being is that the first time he treated me bad is when I should have cut this guy off. And when the relationship started to go out of balance with me picking him up and driving him back and forth, that's when I should have ended things, because the situation had gotten so blown out of proportion. And then it was like I was still trying, I'm like, oh, let me get this, maybe I'll look nice and I'll put on a new color lipstick and maybe I'll wear my hair a different way. You could have lit me on fire. The guy didn't care. He didn't care. And like Sarah used, the way she dressed, I felt like she dressed like a mess. I felt like she looked like a mess. But there was something about her that like he was just, I don't know. Like I don't know. Maybe he wanted to save her the way I wanted to save him. I have no idea. But like I think about it all the time, and I'm like, if I could go back, I would. Oh, I'll do it. I'll do it. But this one was just a story time. It was supposed to be private, but I left it. I put it on internet. But I'll do that question. I don't know if it was, I don't know what it was about me that, yeah, that's okay. I'll still answer it. I don't know what it was about me that was willing to put up with that. Or why did I not believe him when he told me he wasn't interested in me? Why couldn't I just digest it and move on? Like now, I'm older, if I don't feel like things are working, like I've been able to like move past it. But when I was younger, like it was very hard for me to accept that. But think about all of the energy that I put out. Like there was a lot of energy of like fear and Sarah being better than me. And as far as like, like I'm thinking, oh, well, I own my own house and I have two jobs. Not that I'm like financially a millionaire, but I felt like I was on the right track. And I felt like Sarah was this hot mess that blew in from elsewhere, living off of people, but yet somebody wanted to rescue her and take care of her. And I felt like I was the jackass that was taking care of him and getting nothing in return. So at the moment, I'm like, I'm doing all the right things. Why doesn't this person want to be with me? Why would he choose? Like, why would you choose a partner who is so like crazy like that? Like why? Like would you put out into the universe? I want somebody who's unstable, who meets guys off the internet and moves around a lot, doesn't work, doesn't want to work. No, you wouldn't want that. So why is he dealing with that? And here I am, like standing in front of him, stable, supportive, buying his music, bringing my friends to his shows. Me and my friends were the only people in the place. And yet he's like, there was less than zero value for me, less than zero. As I started to get older, I stopped that shit because it doesn't change. You know what I mean? It doesn't change. If somebody doesn't want to be with you, the only way that they'll ever see your value is if you disappear. And then maybe not even that. I mean, Matt didn't. It doesn't mean that in other situations that won't happen. I just think that he was very self-centered. I think that he was very spoiled. He wanted what he wanted. He used people, like that's what I think. But yeah, a lot, right. A lot of people you know, I think that like, I don't know, I really thought that he and I were clicking. Like when I go, like I could remember us walking through New York City that night and thinking, oh my God, we're really clicking. Maybe this was meant to be. That's another part. So at this moment, I was studying Kabbalah before um, this isn't a tarot one. I'll answer those two questions, but Zara, if you're here, can you put up a thing saying no super chats? But I'm going to answer those two before I go. I thought that because, all right, I was studying Kabbalah, uh, and Kabbalah says that soulmates are usually brought together when the time is right, no matter where in the world they are. Mountains will move to bring soulmates together, and they usually come from different backgrounds. So I thought, oh, I was brought up Catholic, he's Jewish, we're brought together at this time. Come to find out that his sister was very active at the Kabbalah Center. So I thought, oh, this is meant to be. This is meant to be, right? All the signs are here. This is going to happen for me. And it just wasn't happening. And look, it didn't go on that long because I want to say, maybe it was like a year and a half. It was like, I met him in May, and then it went on until like October of the following year. But it was like a horrible ride. I don't know what happened to Sarah. I don't know what happened. I would have to imagine that she just continued to move from one guy to the next. That's what I would imagine happened, because she like he would say, like she was like she had no direction. Like she used to say to him, well, you know what I'm going to do for a living? I'm going to design bags for Gucci. It's like, no, you're not. It's like, you're not going to design bags for Gucci. You're not a fashion designer. You know nothing about that. You know, that's like me. Like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to become a makeup artist for Channel 12 News. Well, no, you're not. You're not a makeup artist. And that's what she would do. Like she would sit at home in his apartment while he was working, and she would like draw pictures of like purses. And it's like, do we have any sense of reality here? Like, what does it cost to live in New York City? And you're sitting at home coloring. I mean, really, I'm telling you, like, I could get fucking pissed right now talking about it. And I'm like, this asshole is sitting at home coloring while you're out working, and this asshole is driving you back and forth so you don't lose your parking space. You want me to come up and take your garbage out for you too? Because maybe you don't want to go out because it's too cold. I mean, when I think about what I put up with, I get sick to my stomach. So that's why I'm saying, if you find yourself in this situation that's similar to this, and it's hurtful and it's painful, get out of it, because it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. And all of that negativity and insecurity is going out into the universe, and these situations are going to be brought back to you, which is going to prove that you're right. You're not as good as Sarah. You're not good enough. And that's what I kept being shown. Nope. Oh, you took the day off to spend with me? Okay, well, we're spending the day with Sarah. Great. And now I'm in New York City in a car going somewhere, and I can't even go home, because I would have gone home. I would have left. I mean, I value my dog. I'd rather hang out with my dog. Anyhow, so like this is what I'm talking about with third party situations. If you don't hear it when they tell you, then no, he never did. I never heard from him again. No. So if you don't hear it and you don't digest it at the moment, it can continue to get worse. If you kind of back away from it, take a little distance, it doesn't take long. Like that was October, right? The end of October. I had already started seeing somebody else in February. So what was it? 3 or 4 or 5 months, and I had moved on. But if I continued with Matt and I kept putting energy in, I would not have, that relationship in February never would have started. I wouldn't have noticed that guy. I wouldn't have seen him. I would have been too wrapped up with the Matt thing. So like cutting that off and ending it, as painful as it was, at least it ended. I went in the past, and then I had a couple of months where there was nothing going on, but at least nobody was treating me like that. You're no model. Fuck you. Who says that to someone? Meanwhile, I'm looking at pictures of these average, everyday, roly-poly people. They were not models either. You know, they were just average, everyday people. Disgusting. And I stood for it. So whose fault is it? All right, let me answer those 2 questions, and then I'm going to go, because I got to get ready for work. Yeah, I always mean to do these on private only because I know that when I pop up, people are going to think that it's tarot. And this way, nobody does super chats on these, but that's okay. What is the energy with Derek and Lola today? Okay. Well, it comes up with anger and patience. That's what comes up around them. They're not getting a wish around this situation. So if somebody's thinking that they may work it out, I don't think that's happening. And they may be at like a stalemate or see a stalemate. Like neither one of them is willing to give. The energy around them is not great, not at all. And oh, thank you. But you know what? I don't think anybody appreciates. You know, it's like you don't know what you got until it's gone. But I don't think that people can appreciate you if if you're so willing to sell yourself short. Like, oh, Danny will come up and pick me up because she really wants to see me. Well, okay, if you really want to see me, how about you come up here? You know? I mean, he was a real shithead. But you know what? That's just it. It's not about looks. It's never about looks. First of all, this girl, my friend used to say, she's like, it looks like a ceiling fan cut her hair. That's how it looked. It was very, very thin, which is fine. But it didn't look like she didn't have it professionally cut. It looks like she cut it, and it looked like she purposely cut it to make it look like it was crazy. And then she dyed it with Kool-Aid. I mean, if you want to dye your hair and you're a grown woman, you might not want to use Kool-Aid to do it. You may want to at least spend the $4.99 at Rite Aid and buy hair dye. But this was her thing. Like, her thing was, you see how crazy I am? See how unstable I am? Meanwhile, I think she was very calculated and she knew exactly what she was doing. I think that was her thing. She used to wear these pants. I swear to God, I guess she thought that they were cool. My grandfather used to wear those pants, and my friend used to be like, she looks like her haircut was cut with a weed whacker and she's in grandpa's pants. They were like, I guess they were polyester pants. They were my grandfather's pants. It's the best way I can describe them. If I find a picture, I'll post it in the community section. They were not women's pants. And then she would tie them, and she was thin. She would tie them with like a big belt. And I mean, the whole thing was a crisis. But for some reason, she was playing in the band, couldn't play keyboards to save her life, didn't know the lyrics to the songs, but he put her in the band. Her hair was dyed with Kool-Aid. I mean, it was crazy. Marth, how does the Gemini really feel about me? I think he's interested in you. I do. I think he thinks you're attractive. I think he thinks that you're stable. But the only thing is that I think he thinks that you may have somebody else around you. That may be what stops him. Third party situation. He feels like there's somebody else around you. It was crazy. It was crazy. But you know what? I look back and I'm like, it's my fault because I stayed in it for so long. I could have just stopped answering his phone calls. But every time he called, I thought, oh, well, maybe this time things will be different. Or maybe this time, he'll tell me that Sarah left. She went somewhere else. She met somebody else and she's, in Connecticut or Vermont or Maine. But that never happened. I do not believe that she wanted him ever. I think that she didn't want him to be with me because she wanted to be able to control him and she wanted to be able to use him. He also, you see, he used to always cry that he didn't have any money, but I think like me and him being broke, I think broke was two different things. First of all, his mom lived in a very, very wealthy area of New Jersey, very wealthy. He told me that the building that his sister lived in, Beyonce and Jay-Z had a unit in. Now, whether he's lying, I don't know, but I know that those buildings are very expensive to live in. And he was crying that he was broke, and then he shows up on like a moped or whatever you call those things, and he said that it cost him $3,000. When I tell you I'm broke, it means you're lucky if there's $2 in my checking account. It might even be -5. So broke for me is not spending $3,000 on a Vespa. That's what it's called. So the two of us, so I think he may have had some money to play with, and I think that she liked that. I think he was also willing to pay for things for her. I think that he felt like, it gave him like he was like manly. Because, but meanwhile, did he ever pay for anything for me? Never, never. And I never wanted him to. We split everything. And I just like, I think I look back now and I'm like, what an asshole I was. I was completely taken advantage of. I mean, I remember that Sunday I spent at my friend's house crying. I remember I was eating raspberry sorbet. I don't know why. I remember being in my pajamas eating raspberry sorbet at my friend's house. I was just, I couldn't stop crying. And she was like, I don't even know what to do for you. I'm like, there's nothing that you can do for me. I'm like, it was terrible. I mean, like, usually, as rotten as people can be, they usually don't attack you personally like that, like physically. Like, I can't imagine saying to some, and that's just the thing. We're all too good always for the people that aren't appreciating us, but we don't see it and we put up with it. And all of those, so then it gets even more dangerous because all of that insecurity and fear that goes out into the universe can come back at another point. So going through that with him at that point could have also, my next relationship that had a lot of shit that went on in it, I could have been reflecting back because of everything I'd put out a couple of years before. Because, they say when manifesting, it doesn't happen immediately, it happens over time. So constantly being fearful of, he's going to meet somebody better, somebody else is going to be more important, maybe I'm not pretty enough, maybe I'm not stable enough, maybe I'm not, whatever it was. And then what happened, it happened to me again. Gary was never mean to me, ever, ever. He was never mean to me. He would never, even to this day, he's never said anything mean to me, not even once. I mean, mean things like, hey, we're not married, I can do what I want. Okay, yeah, you're an asshole, but he would never insult me physically, ever, never. He could be an asshole in his own right. I'm not taking that away from him, but he would never say things to make me feel bad about myself as a physically. You're no model. Well, yeah, okay. But with the weed whacker haircut, she's beautiful. She was okay looking. She wasn't an ugly girl. She could have, she could have been much prettier if she didn't dye her hair with Kool-Aid and cut it with a weed whacker. But, that also, I think she may have been a couple of years younger than us. Not much, though. A couple of years. But I think that was her thing. And that's what got these guys to, take care of her. And it worked. I mean, it worked. I don't, like I always say, I don't know who's more stupid, me or her, because, oh, thank you. Because, she got all these people taking care of her and paying for stuff and taking her places. I mean, you would think that after that whole concert thing happened, I would have gotten rid of him then, but I still wasn't. I still forgave him, and I was still like, oh, okay. All right, yeah, I understand. Yeah, all right. Well, those days are over. Oh, thank you, Anthony. This was a really long time ago. But anyhow, all right, so that's it for story time. Oh my God, it's been 38 minutes. I'm going to go. I'll see you guys tonight. Have a nice afternoon. Thank you.